Do you want to discover the quickest way to make a narcissistic person completely lose interest in you? There are 7 powerful things you can do that will make them slowly step away and stop looking for opportunities to disturb your peace. And the 7th one is so powerful that they may start staying far away because they realize they no longer have access to your energy. Many people think the only way to handle a narcissist is by fighting back, proving their point, explaining themselves, or trying to make the other person understand their pain. But that approach often keeps the cycle alive because it gives the narcissist exactly what they are looking for: attention, emotional reactions, conflict, and a sense of control. What truly changes the situation is when you become calm, centered, and completely focused on your own peace. When you stop giving them the emotional response they depend on, you become someone they can no longer easily influence. And today, we are going to break down exactly how this happens, step by step. Before we continue, understand something very important. This is not about playing games, getting revenge, or trying to hurt someone. This is about protecting your emotional health, your confidence, and your inner stability. People with strong narcissistic traits often seek reactions from others because reactions make them feel powerful. Your anger, your fear, your sadness, and your constant need to explain yourself can become the very thing that keeps the connection going. As long as they can push your emotional buttons, they feel they still have influence over you. But the moment you stop allowing their behavior to control your emotions, their sense of power begins to disappear. Many narcissistic people create an illusion that they have a permanent place in your life and that you will always respond whenever they reach out. They may see you as someone they can return to whenever they want attention or validation. But here's the truth they never expect. That illusion collapses when you stop participating in the same pattern. When you no longer chase, argue, defend, or constantly try to prove your worth, they lose the role they once had. So now let's go through the 7 things that can make a narcissistic person lose interest and stop seeking control over you. Stay until the end because the final point is the one that creates the biggest shift. The first thing you need to do is stop giving them emotional reactions. A person with narcissistic behaviors often gains energy from seeing that they can affect you. They may not care whether your reaction is love, anger, frustration, or sadness. What matters is that they can still create an emotional response inside you. When you cry, plead, argue, or spend hours trying to explain your feelings, you may unknowingly give them the attention they are seeking. Imagine a child who throws a loud tantrum because they know it brings attention. If every tantrum receives a big reaction, the child learns that the behavior works. In a similar way, some narcissistic individuals repeat certain behaviors because they have learned those actions create emotional responses from others. When you react strongly, they may feel powerful because they know they can still affect your mood and your peace. But when you become calm, when you stop immediately responding, and when you no longer allow their words to control your emotions, something changes. The dynamic starts to break. At first, they may increase their efforts. They might say things designed to upset you, bring up old memories, create unnecessary conflict, or suddenly act like they have changed. They may try different ways to bring back the emotional reaction they used to receive. But when you remain steady and give them nothing to feed on, their attempts begin to lose their effect. Because what happens when someone keeps performing, but the person watching is no longer interested? Eventually, the performance loses its purpose. This does not mean pretending to be cold or acting like you do not care. It means reaching a genuine place where your peace matters more than their approval, their criticism, or their attempts to pull you back into chaos. That is when your power begins to return. That is what true strength looks like. The second thing you must do is learn how to practice complete no contact in the right way. Many people believe they are doing no contact, but they secretly leave small openings. They stop talking, but they still check updates. They block the number, but they ask friends what the person is doing. They say they are moving on, but they still search for signs that the other person misses them. Real no contact means closing every single door. It means no communication, no checking, and no hidden curiosity. Experts often explain that people usually break no contact in several common ways: sending direct messages, receiving information through mutual connections, watching their social media activity, passing by places connected to them, or asking others for updates. These small actions may seem harmless, but they keep the emotional connection alive. Every open door gives the other person a chance to return to the same pattern. Imagine a thief walking through a neighborhood looking for an easy target. One house has strong locks, security cameras, bright lights, and every entrance protected. Another house has open doors and no protection. Which one seems easier to enter? People who seek control often look for easy access too. When you make yourself unavailable, you remove the opportunity for them to continue the same cycle. That is why true no contact has to be complete. Block their calls if necessary. Remove access through social media. Stop looking at their profiles. If you need to change your contact information to protect your peace, do what is necessary. Let mutual friends know that you do not want updates about them and you do not want to share information about yourself either. But the hardest part is not blocking them. The hardest part is controlling your own curiosity. Every time you check their life, you reopen a connection you are trying to close. Every time you search for information, you give your attention back to them. But when you become completely silent and focused on yourself, you become unreachable. They cannot influence what they cannot access. They cannot control what they cannot reach. They may test the boundary from time to time, but when they receive no response, they eventually realize the old methods no longer work. The third thing is to stop defending yourself and stop over-explaining everything. People with strong narcissistic behaviors often know how to twist conversations until you feel like you have to prove your intentions. They may accuse you of things you did not do. They may change the subject when confronted. They may create confusion until you spend all your energy trying to make them understand your side. But the more you explain, the more trapped you become in their cycle. When you constantly defend yourself, you are silently accepting the idea that they have the authority to judge your value. You are giving them the position of deciding whether you are good enough, caring enough, or worthy enough. But watch what happens when you stop. If they call you selfish and you simply respond, "That is your opinion." If they say you never cared and you calmly say, "You are allowed to believe that," suddenly the power changes. Their words no longer control your emotions. Their accusations no longer force you into long conversations. Their ability to pull you into endless explanations begins to disappear. You do not need someone else's approval to know your own heart. You do not need to prove your kindness, loyalty, or intentions to someone who has already decided to misunderstand you. This does not mean allowing false accusations to damage your life. If there is a serious situation involving your career, reputation, or safety, you should respond wisely and professionally. But in personal conflicts, constantly trying to convince someone who does not want to understand you only drains your energy. Sometimes the strongest response is not another explanation. Sometimes the strongest response is your peace. When you stop defending every detail of your existence, you send a powerful message. You no longer have the power to define who I am. And that is something a controlling person struggles to accept. The fourth thing is to become genuinely indifferent. Pretending not to care will not create freedom because people who are focused on control often notice when someone is only acting. Real indifference comes from healing so deeply that the person no longer controls your emotions. Their actions, their opinions, their choices, and their words stop carrying the same weight. They become emotionally unimportant. You no longer wake up wondering what they are doing. You no longer check for signs that they regret losing you. You no longer hope they finally understand your value. They simply become another person who no longer has access to your inner world. But reaching this level of peace requires allowing yourself to grieve. You have to grieve the dream you created. You have to release the version of the relationship you hoped would exist. You have to accept that the person you imagined and the reality you experienced may not have been the same. Once you process that pain, something changes inside you. You stop seeing them as someone powerful who controls your emotions. You begin seeing their behavior more clearly. You recognize that their need for control often comes from insecurity. Their hurtful actions come from their own unresolved struggles. And when you understand that, you stop carrying their behavior as a personal attack against your worth. Real indifference is not anger. It is not revenge. It is not secretly wishing for their downfall. Anger still creates a connection because it keeps your attention attached to them. True freedom is neutrality. It is reaching a point where you no longer need to fix them, understand every action they take, or wait for them to become different. They simply stop occupying space in your emotional world. And that is the moment you realize you have taken your power back. The fifth step is to completely rebuild your own life and place your focus back on yourself. This is where the deepest transformation begins. You stop making choices based on their reactions. You stop posting things just to make them jealous. You stop trying to prove that you are happy. You stop going places hoping they will notice you. You stop measuring your value by whether they miss you or whether they finally recognize what they lost. Instead, you begin creating a life that exists for you and only you. You invest in your goals. You rebuild your confidence. You spend time with people who bring peace into your life. You discover the parts of yourself that may have been ignored while you were focused on surviving the relationship. And this is where something unexpected happens. The moment you stop making them the center of your world, they stop having control over your emotions. You become someone they cannot easily predict anymore. You are no longer waiting for their attention. You are no longer depending on their approval. You are building a life so meaningful that their presence or absence no longer determines your happiness. Stay until the end, because the final steps reveal the biggest shift of all. When you truly become the person who no longer needs their validation, that is when the entire dynamic changes forever. You stop asking yourself, what will they think if I do this? Instead, you begin living according to your own values. You start creating new goals, exploring new opportunities, meeting healthier people, and following the dreams you once put aside. Your time is no longer spent replaying old conversations or trying to understand someone else's behavior. You begin investing that energy into your own growth, your physical and emotional well-being, and the things that bring genuine happiness into your life. Then something powerful starts happening. You begin to change from the inside out. Your presence becomes calmer. Your energy becomes lighter. You start carrying yourself with confidence and peace. People can feel the difference. A person who once felt trapped begins to look free. And this is something that deeply affects those who wanted control over you. They expected you to stay broken, confused, and constantly thinking about them. They expected their absence to create pain. But when you build a beautiful life without needing their approval, their influence begins to disappear. They realize they are no longer the center of your attention. When you focus completely on yourself, you no longer have space for unnecessary drama. You are too focused on creating a better future. You stop comparing your journey to theirs. You stop trying to prove that you are better. You stop explaining every decision. You stop seeking validation, and that inner peace becomes your strongest protection. It keeps you from being pulled back into the same unhealthy patterns. Your calm becomes a boundary they cannot easily cross. Your happiness becomes something they cannot control. And this is where your freedom truly begins. The sixth thing you must do is stop trying to expose them or change them. This is one of the most difficult lessons because your heart may want justice. You may feel the need to tell everyone the truth. You may want others to see what happened behind closed doors. You may want them to finally be held responsible for the pain they caused. But every time you spend your energy trying to reveal them, you are still giving them a place in your life. Even negative attention is still attention. Some people do not care whether you admire them or dislike them. What matters is that they still occupy your thoughts and emotions. When you try to expose them, they may turn the situation around and present themselves as the victim. They may change the story, deny what happened, or convince others that you are the problem. Many people only see the version that is shown publicly, not what happened privately. This can feel deeply unfair, but chasing their approval or trying to force everyone to understand may only exhaust you further. The same truth applies when you try to change them. You cannot transform someone who refuses to recognize their own behavior. Sending information, explaining their patterns, asking them to understand your pain, or begging them to become different keeps you emotionally connected to the same cycle. Their personal growth is their responsibility. Their self-awareness is their choice. Their healing is not a mission you were given. You cannot create compassion in someone who refuses to look within themselves. The moment you stop trying to fix them and stop trying to prove their mistakes to the world, you recover your own energy. You stop being trapped in their story and start writing your own. That is the real victory. The greatest comeback is not making them suffer. It is building a life so peaceful that their actions no longer affect you. And now we reach the seventh and final step. This is the strongest shift of all. Become completely unavailable as a source of emotional energy. This is the highest level of freedom. It means you are not only physically separated from their influence, but emotionally disconnected from the need for their approval, attention, or recognition. They no longer have the ability to control your emotions because you have stopped giving them that power. When they send a message, you no longer feel desperate to respond. When they try to provoke you, you no longer feel the need to defend yourself. When they suddenly become kind, you no longer lose yourself in hope. You remain steady, you remain calm, you remain connected to your own peace. You give them nothing to use against you. No anger, no desperation, no emotional explanations, no need to prove anything. You become still and grounded, not because you hate them, but because you have finally found yourself. When you reach this level, you do not simply make one unhealthy person lose interest. You change the type of energy you allow into your life. People who look for control begin to recognize that they cannot easily manipulate you. At the same time, healthier people are naturally drawn toward your stability and confidence. You begin attracting connections that respect your peace instead of challenging it. Emotional freedom is not about pretending you are unaffected. It is about healing so deeply that manipulation no longer controls your choices. It is understanding that your peace is valuable and should not be handed to people who constantly disturb it. When you become unavailable to manipulation, you become available to your own happiness. You finally start living without carrying someone else's chaos on your shoulders. So, these are the 7 powerful ways to remove yourself from a narcissistic cycle and protect your peace. Stop giving emotional reactions. Create strong boundaries and maintain distance when needed. Stop over-explaining and defending yourself. Reach genuine indifference. Put your energy into your own life. Stop wasting yourself trying to expose or change someone who refuses to change. And finally, become emotionally free from the need for their attention. Remember, this is not about revenge. It is not about proving that you won. It is about returning to yourself. It is about reclaiming your confidence, your happiness, and your self-respect. When you follow these steps, the biggest change is not that someone else loses interest in controlling you. The biggest change is that you stop allowing anyone to control your emotional world. The goal is not to hurt them. The goal is to heal yourself. Sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is to quietly walk away and never return to the same cycle. Not because you hate someone, but because you finally understand your own value. You do not owe anyone endless explanations, emotional reactions, or a final moment of closure. You owe yourself peace. When you rise above the chaos and stop responding to unhealthy patterns, you become the one thing they cannot control, a person who is calm, secure, and free. And that is where true victory begins. Not by defeating another person, but by choosing yourself again and again. If this message gave you strength, continue learning, continue growing, and continue protecting your peace every day. Because the life beyond emotional control is far more beautiful than the life you leave behind. When you finally step away from the cycle, something powerful starts happening within you. You begin noticing how much of your life was spent trying to earn acceptance from someone who was never willing to give it in a healthy way. You remember all the moments when you explained yourself again and again, hoping that this time they would finally understand, only to feel misunderstood once more. You begin seeing the pattern clearly, the confusion, the emotional highs and lows, the moments of kindness followed by painful behavior, the constant feeling that you had to prove your worth. You realize that you were carrying a burden that was never yours to carry. Some people create emotional confusion that makes you question your own judgment and value. But when you finally step outside that environment, everything begins to feel different. The weight becomes lighter. Your thoughts become clearer. Your confidence begins returning. You start realizing that peace was always possible. You just needed to stop giving your power away. That quiet space that once felt frightening slowly becomes the place where you finally feel safe. The silence you once saw as emptiness begins to feel like freedom. In the beginning, the distance may feel like losing something important. You may even miss the intensity, the constant emotions, and the unpredictable moments because your mind became used to that emotional cycle. But what you miss is not always love. Sometimes you miss the emotional highs and lows that kept you attached. This is how unhealthy emotional bonds can work. They can make your mind crave the same person who caused the pain, but as time passes, the confusion starts to disappear. The heavy thoughts become lighter, your sleep improves, your smile slowly returns. You begin enjoying simple moments again. You start feeling comfortable in your own space without needing anyone else to create your happiness. And that is one of the clearest signs that healing has started. The person who tried to break your confidence may believe they damaged you forever. But what they did not expect is that the experience would push you toward discovering your own strength. People who seek control often do not expect someone to rebuild themselves. They expect you to stay stuck, constantly replaying the past, searching for answers, and waiting for some kind of final explanation. But the deepest form of closure is realizing you do not need one from them. You do not need their apology to move forward. You do not need them to admit their mistakes before you choose peace. You do not need to hear the words, "I was wrong," to know what you experienced was real. Sometimes apologies are used to reopen doors instead of creating true change. Once you understand that, you stop waiting for something they may never give. You stop looking backward and begin walking toward your future. You take your power back. You choose yourself again. Healing after a painful relationship does not happen overnight, but every step forward is valuable. It is like leaving a dark room after spending years inside. At first, the brightness feels uncomfortable because your eyes are not used to seeing clearly. But slowly, you begin noticing things you forgot existed. You notice the peace of quiet mornings. You notice your own laughter returning. You notice how good it feels to make decisions without fear of someone's reaction. You remember the person you were before the confusion, before the constant questioning, before you started doubting yourself. You reconnect with the parts of yourself that were hidden beneath the stress. And as you continue healing, something else begins to change. The type of people you allow into your life changes. You stop being attracted to relationships that drain your energy. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You stop believing that pain is proof of love. Your energy becomes different, and the people around you begin to reflect that change. Healthy people recognize your calmness and respect your boundaries. People who only wanted control may feel uncomfortable because they can no longer access the old version of you. That is how you know you are growing. When peace starts feeling normal and chaos starts feeling unfamiliar, you realize something important. Love was never supposed to feel like constant confusion. Real love brings respect. Real love brings stability. Real love allows you to feel safe being yourself. A person who depends on control, drama, and emotional reactions cannot survive in that environment because there is nothing left for them to use. When you stop providing endless reactions, they search somewhere else for attention. Let them go. You were never meant to carry someone else's emptiness. You were never assigned the role of fixing someone who refuses to change. You were never supposed to become their emotional support system while losing yourself. Your purpose was not to save them. Your purpose was to learn, grow, and return to yourself. That is why your healing is more than just recovery. It is a complete transformation. The version of you who accepted disrespect because you were afraid of losing someone begins to disappear. The version of you who kept explaining yourself to be understood learns the power of silence. The version of you who searched for love outside yourself begins discovering the love that already existed within. You become someone who no longer waits for small pieces of affection because you have created a life full of meaning. You build your own foundation. You understand that peace is not empty. Peace is valuable. Peace is something worth protecting. There may still be moments when memories appear. A song may remind you of the past. A place may bring back old emotions. A message may trigger a familiar feeling. But something changes. Instead of falling apart, you become aware. You pause. You breathe. You remind yourself that you survived what once felt impossible. They no longer control your emotional state. That realization is powerful because it means a part of yourself that once felt lost has returned. Every time you choose silence instead of reacting, you move forward. Every time you choose peace instead of conflict, you become stronger. Every time you walk away instead of trying to prove your value, you protect your dignity. And every time you look at yourself and realize you no longer need someone else's approval to feel worthy, you experience true freedom. That is the kind of victory that does not need attention from the outside world. It is quiet, it is personal, it happens deep within you.